would not accept their mail-in ballots. On Tuesday, a U.S. district judge in Boston ruled in favor of a lawsuit brought by voting rights groups and said Trump's order was threatening an erosion of trust in our democracy and that there's a critical need for an injunction to prevent defendants from changing election rules on the eve of the election. I'm Michael Kastner.
Millions of Americans have difficulties getting access to maternity care.
An annual report from the March of Dimes out this week finds more than 34% of counties in the U.S. are maternity care deserts, where women have to drive an average of 3 times farther to get labor and delivery service than places with full access. It can lead to higher instances of unplanned deliveries outside of a hospital and higher rates of complications during pregnancy. Since the start of 2024, at least 96 labor and delivery units have closed in 35 states, the majority of them being the only local birthing facility in their area. I'm Tammy Trujillo.
A 13-year-old Detroit boy is in police custody in Ohio after he allegedly shot his dad in the back and fled the city in the family's SUV along with their dog. Detroit Police Commanding Officer Dietrich Lever explains what happened.
I believe there was an instance of discipline, and he being the suspect took offense. When his father came home, he shot at him 2 times back in the back.
The shooting happened around 5 p.m. yesterday at the family home. The 13-year-old was arrested with one other person in Ohio. No names have been released. The father survived. From America's News Network, USA Radio News.
Maybe this is you too. There's enormous frustration right now with healthcare costs. It is amazing. Healthcare costs for families in the last 20 years have almost tripled, and it just keeps getting worse. All this to say, this is why MediShare is so in demand right now. People are looking for alternatives, and MediShare is proven. You can save thousands of dollars a year and actually like it more. Over 1 million Americans are now part of healthcare sharing, and MediShare is the gold standard. It's trusted. It works. It's been helping people save money and have peace of mind now for 30 plus years. It's not some big impersonal thing either. It's a community of people like you helping each other. So yeah, if you're frustrated too, here's your chance to make a refreshing change. You'll notice the difference as soon as you call. They're easy to talk to. You can get a price within 2 minutes. Here is the number. Call 855-SHARE-40. That's 855-SHARE-40. 855-SHARE-40.
Toyota is recalling about 655,000 Camrys worldwide over a software defect that can cause the driver display to go blank. The problem can also deactivate turn signals, hazard lights, and certain safety warning sounds. More than 508,000 2025 and 26 Camry hybrids in the U.S. are affected. Toyota says owners will receive a free software update with notification letters going out starting September 21st. TMZ is reporting that ZZ Top drummer Frank Beard is suffering from serious health issues. Mark Mayfield fills us in.
Just got paid today. Got me a pocket full of change.
The news comes after the band canceled their August the 5th show in Hollywood, citing unforeseen personal matters and insurmountable obstacles. The show was supposed to kick off ZZ Top's summer tour. The group's tour continues tomorrow in Central Point, Oregon.
The Powerball jackpot has reached an estimated $1 billion after no ticket matched all 6 numbers Monday night. Wednesday's drawing will be the 44th consecutive without a jackpot winner, making it the 8th largest prize in Powerball history. The winner could choose an estimated $433 million lump sum before taxes or $1 billion paid over 29 years. The odds of hitting the jackpot are roughly 1 in 292 million. I'm Ron Warner, USA Radio News.
You can help put vets to work by donating your car, truck, or van. Your donation will directly support programs to help vets find jobs or even start their own business. Donate today for fast, free pickup of your vehicle. Call 800-209-4580 for 24-hour response. Call 800-209-4580. That's 800-209-4580.
Dependable Lock Service is your source for replacement car keys, custom safes from Liberty Safe, and so many more lock and key services. With over 30 years of experience in lock and key industry, there's nothing Dependable Lock Service can't do for you. Whether you're looking for duplicate automotive chip keys, rekeying commercial and residential locks, or custom safe building, we've got you covered. Call 603-886-0559. Nashua's dependable lock services 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
The sky's not the limit, it's just the beginning. I'm Ed Mullen from Nashua Aerial Advertising. There's no better way to advertise your business and or message than high in the sky. How can you make your advertising budget work for you? By putting your ads up where they'll stand out. The sky is an uncluttered, impressive venue. You can put your message over a region or location to target your desired demographic. Put your ads where they're needed. We provide coverage over communities through Merrimack Valley, Greater Nashua, Manchester, Lowell, and points throughout South Central New Hampshire and North Central Mass. Summertime beaches, sporting events, races, fairs, and festivals are all ready-made for banner telling. For more information, please visit us online at NashuaAerialAdvertising.com. And remember, the sky's not the limit, it's just the beginning.
Tired of wondering where your money really goes? At Mammoth Nation, we built what was missing. The America First Marketplace. Every brand we feature is 100% American owned and operated, rigorously vetted for their values and committed to supporting our Constitution, law enforcement, and the American dream. When you shop with us, your dollar stays in the neighborhood, supporting families, veterans, and charities like Folds of Honor. No more sending your hard-earned money overseas or to companies that don't respect you here. Your dollar reflects your values. Your dollar, your values. Your America. Join Mammoth Nation today and be part of building a patriot economy by going to TruckersUnitedForFreedom.com affiliate page and hit that link. American built, America strong. Mammoth Nation.
The views and opinions of the following show do not reflect those of WSMN, its owners, and/or associates.
Welcome to the Common Sense Conservatives, a political discussion group about current events and other government-related matters every Wednesday evening from 7 to 8 p.m. Right here on WSMN 1590 AM, WSMN 95.3 FM, and streaming live on wsmn.live. Making sense of the inverted reality we are subject to every day, the Common Sense Conservatives are here to help bring you back to reality. Now, your hosts, Chris Wyatt, Todd McKinley, and John Gorton.
Hey, folks, good evening. Welcome back once again. This is Chris live in Nelspruit in South Africa, not far from the border of Mozambique, where it is now 1 a.m. My colleagues, they're back in the States. That's my friend there, Sergeant First Class Todd McKinley. He is experiencing 7 p.m. in East Tennessee, and John Grover in the studio in Nashua, New Hampshire, which I can't see on the screen with my phone, but let me try to see if I can get my laptop to show it to me. There's John. I can see you now. Okay, so good. Welcome back to the program, folks. Let me ask how it's going around the horn. I am experiencing no internet in my lodge here, and I'm running off my cell phone network, which seems to be holding for the moment. So if I disappear, I have not been kidnapped by Iranian terrorists. I've actually lost my network. So Todd McKinley, what's going on, brother?
Oh, not bad there, Colonel. Appreciate it. How much longer you got over there? I don't want to alert the Iranians to where you're at and how long you have, but are you going to sneak out on an Air Force plane or a cargo box or something? What are you looking to get out of there with?
Well, I will be boarding a commercial flight and exiting the other side of the plane in a food van that will be loading up the meals. Yes, that's what's going to happen. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I'll be here until September, so I got still a few weeks to go on this rather long trip. It's going pretty well, but I'm, as they say in England, knackered, pretty tired. I've been doing lots of meet and greets, speaking to a lot of people, and meeting a lot of people who are involved in the refugee program, although that wasn't the reason I came. And unfortunately, many who've received letters of ineligibility, which is heartbreaking for them. They will not be able to come to America.
It's sad.
They did not qualify for
Very
the program.
sad.
That's sad for them. Yeah, so John, what's the word? How you doing in New Hampshire?
Doing okay here, Chris. I wasn't so concerned about Iranians coming to kidnap you. I thought maybe the South African government would like to pick you up and drag you away and keep you from, educating their locals and stuff and so on and so forth. But
no, they love me. They love me. I bring more attention to them.
Oh, they like that, I guess. Okay, cool.
Yeah, not really. I'm just trying to put a good spin on things. It's the no spin zone here. It's not.
Bill O'Reilly.
It's not Bill O'Reilly, but it is the no spin zone tonight.
Chris
So
was-
Todd, I've watched the events. Go ahead, John.
Oh, I was gonna say, so you weren't thinking about that until I mentioned it, and all of a sudden you got a little skittish, huh?
No, not at all. I've thought about that. But what I say to Todd, and I'll get back to you here in a moment, Sean, is that I noticed that the press is obsessed about how the radical left did not win all the races in the Midwest they thought they were going to win, particularly the Wisconsin governor race, where this wackadoodle lunatic Francesca Hong lost the race by 4,000 votes. And nobody got a majority, just plurality, 39.81 to 39.33. A moderate Democrat, David Crowley, won the race for governor. Thoughts on that one, Todd?
Well, absolutely. Well, actually, speaking of Wisconsin, an acquaintance of mine, Jay Schrader, won the Republican nomination for Secretary of State. I'm going to look to have him on the show at some point in the future, just a FYI. But yeah, I can tell you, we need more of the moderates, Democrats, to step up and win these races, because we need a loyal opposition. Republicans need a loyal opposition. Conservatives need a loyal opposition. We don't need radical socialism trying to bring in communism, because that's incompatible with American values, with our way of life, with our government, with our economy, the way we're a capitalist society, etc. It is incompatible with Western values and Western philosophy. So I'm glad to see, and it's weird I'm saying this, I'm glad to see moderate Democrats actually win some races right now. That's where I'll say.
Yeah, no, I'm actually, I'm grateful for that, because we've had lunatics in New York City and elsewhere voting for these wackadoodles. Listen, I don't mean to insult Americans, but the problem is that most Americans don't struggle. They don't suffer. They never dealt with loss in a way, and they've never seen the failure of governance, because the country's been, in some respects, on autopilot for decades. So I hate to use the phrase fat, dumb, and happy, but I mean, in some respects, as a society, we are fat, dumb, and happy.
I say we're distracted by, as Juvenal, the Roman satire said, we're distracted by bread and circuses, and it shows in our society, shows in our diets, shows in the way people just cram thousands of calories down their throat, lays about, and then we'll talk about the Second Amendment, like in case our government becomes tyrannical, we got this Second Amendment. It's like your government is already tyrannical. I mean, they fleece us left and right. We're trillions of dollars in debt. They throw us into wars that are endless. Sometimes wars that we probably don't need to be in, like going into Iraq whenever there was really no reason to go in there. But that's a sidebar. Not really the point here.
Well, that was a much more intellectual description of it. I just said fat, dumb, and happy, but essentially we said the same thing.
Right, exactly.
So, I think the tax on tea was 2%. In Boston, I think that the Boston Tea Party,
and that was outrageous.
And
we started a war.
We revolted over 2% tax, and the federal government takes 18% of my income in Social Security and Medicaid and Medicare because I'm self-employed. Uncle Sugar takes 28% income tax. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania takes 3%. That means that 48 cents of every dollar disappear before I ever see them. And then I pay sales tax, gasoline tax, property tax, head tax on all the rest. We revolted against an empire for far less, Todd.
Absolutely. An empire that by all accounts should have been able to come in here and just destroy us and crush us. It is by the grace of God, and of course, thankful to the French that we were able to survive and weather that and win that war, essentially.
Well, John, if I'm not mistaken, is the motto of New Hampshire "Live Free or Die" or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Live free or die. Love it.
Yeah, I mean, New Hampshire, New England led this revolt against the British Crown over a 2% tax and other egregious offenses. But the precipitous event was the Boston Tea Party that really galvanized people, and that all occurred in New England.
Actually, Chris, I think there was a lot that led up to it. It was a good public 2 decades of abuses from the Crown, wasn't it? I mean, you had the pine tree.
No, I said many abuses. I mean, this is just one of many. I mean, the impressment of our seamen, the taxation without representation. But the Boston Tea Party was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back in 1775, and it just went from there.
It was a breaking point. Yeah, that was pretty much the breaking point when they said we had enough and started really revolting. I mean, geez, they went out and burned down the governor's mansion at one point in time in the middle of the night. I mean, these guys were fierce.
Hey, don't be giving the residents of New Hampshire any ideas.
But you think about it. I mean, think about it. Those guys were, whenever they were called to arms, the redcoats are out. The redcoats are out. they were out ready to go. You talk about obviously pre-Second Amendment. You talk about people ready to defend their rights, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, before that was even actually spelled out in the second paragraph of the Declaration. They were living it, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. They believed it. And nowadays we say it just as a catchphrase or it's a slogan on a shirt, and people don't really understand what it is and won't really truly defend it. They'll say they will. They'll put a sticker on the truck and say, yeah, in case they get tyrannical, Second Amendment, and then won't show up to vote. We have 20% of the people that are registered to vote will show up and vote in any regular election. In Tennessee, I think we had maybe 30% of the vote show up, maybe, and I'm maybe off on that a little bit. But think about that, 30-some%. I mean, less than 50% is pathetic and sad. And you want to pretend you live in a free society or whatever. If you're not having a say, you're allowing people who are lesser people than you to get into office and really pass legislation that oppresses you, that reaches into your pocketbook, etc. That puts into legislation that you don't even have no clue if you're even breaking the law or not on a daily basis. And it's sad. So your government is tyrannical.
I think to your point, Todd, a lot of people spend a lot of time on social media complaining about government. They complain about what's going on, but they don't want to get up. And once you say, hey, there's a solution to that, you want to get involved, it's crickets all the way across, right? They don't want to get involved. Midterms elections, they don't want to get out and vote. They don't want to be bothered. They get what they deserve, man. You got to grow up and get involved. Complaining, if you're just sitting there whining like a child and complaining, that's what you're doing. You're just being a whiner. It's time to get up and vote.
It's an idiotic statement to say, well, my vote don't count. It's all rigged. It's nonsense. It's like getting distracted because they do these UAPs or UFO video releases. I'm not saying that they're not aliens in the universe. It's a vast universe, for crying out loud. But this shouldn't be our main focus, for crying out loud. These are meant to distract you from everything else that's going on in the world, for crying out loud.
Aliens in the universe. Hell, we got them right here, Joe Biden.
Right? That's true.
Sadly, they're right here in our own neighborhood.
The cancer he didn't have just a couple of years ago has all of a sudden spread, and metastasized. It's all this. It's like the guy had cancer before he left office, for crying out loud. We knew this. Oh, he's healthy, ready to serve another 4 years. Nonsense. Come on. He didn't serve for his first 4 years.
He kind of sleptwalked through it.
Yeah.
So, gents, I'm going to play contrarian and devil's advocate. There was most of my life I was disappointed in voter participation, but as I've gotten older, I'm more inclined to say, fine.
I think Chris froze up on us.
Yeah, I think he did there.
Let me take him out and bring him.
Literacy requirement, chew gum, we're allowed to vote. Not every blithering idiot on the planet. So if the blithering idiots stay home, actually, I'm not losing a lot of sleep.
Right. I worked the polls this past election here. I had a state and local and a federal primary and general election, and I actually liked it because a couple people actually had papers. They had things written down, questions. They're like, hey, I've done research on these two candidates. The one you're working for and the other one. I just spoke to the other candidates' people. Now I want to speak to you, and I kind of laid everything out there. And they're like, that's kind of what I had here, and what you just told me, that's who I'm going to vote for. But people actually did their homework, and I really appreciated that. Versus, listen to somebody's rhetoric and voting accordingly to their rhetoric. Because I could promise you anything under the sun. I could tell you, hey, I'm going to get rid of the gas tax in the state of Tennessee, like some candidates actually did, door to door. And it's like, how are you going to fund your roads? Right now, Tennessee has a $30 billion deficit whenever it comes to our road construction. How are you going to fund your roads? And I get it, taxes are too high across the board on so many things. But this is one type of tax that, I agree in paying, because if I'm going to use the roads, I want good roads so it doesn't destroy my car, etc.
On the taxes issue, though, are taxes really too high? Or is it people's wages aren't keeping up with inflation the way they're raising our property taxes with inflation? That's really what taxes are doing, right? They're not raising them. They're not raising them because it's a matter of we want more money. They're raising them with to raise up with the inflation rates.
Yeah, that's another point right there, John.
I'm going to argue that taking 48% of my income, regardless of whether I make $1,000 or $1 million a month, is immoral. I would say 10 to 15% of my income to make government work should be sufficient. And at the same token, I'm not one of those people that rails against school taxes. The way they do it is a bit unfair, but I'm okay funding schools, even though I have no children in the schools, because we need the next generation to be functionally able to think critically. So
Thank you.
I don't necessarily like the funding model, but I do agree that we must fund schools. And I don't like the fact that the federal government gets involved in funding schools, because school is a local issue. And when the federal government gets involved, it gets screwed up, Todd.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I agree with you. And being on a local school board, we see all the mandates come down from, the federal level, and of course, even the state level, and a lot of them are unfunded. And we got to figure out how to pay for them. It's nonsense. Yeah, it should be at the local level, because who knows better the needs, that your kids need than the teachers and your parents in the local community. And also, whenever they leave the school, what kind of jobs are they trying to compete for? Is it some sort of, everybody's not going to go be a professor or a writer or something like that. We need people that are going to go out and actually, do labor intensive work, if you will, work on our roads. People that need to be engineers. We also need doctors, professionals, etc. And I always say an educated public is an employable public, and businesses don't go to localities where, the education level is fairly low, where you have failing schools. That's why I do support funding schools as well, because if you have positive schools that are actually being successful, more likely that you're going to have industry go to those areas, and everybody's going to benefit.
Well, that's a fair point, and I think you're spot on. Let's get back to this Wisconsin thing. The front runner there, Francesca Hong, was up by 22 points just a month ago. Not even a month ago. It was 28 days ago. She had a 22-point lead on her closest challenger, and she lost this race. They are pulling their hair out, the Democratic Socialist America. You know those guys. Point of order, point of personal privilege. I have sensory issues. Please just shake your hands, wave your hands like this. And of course, the next point of personal privilege is I have vertigo. Please don't do that. You're making me have seizures. What stupid people.
Right. Oh, flop around on the floor. Yeah.
That is, if you want entertainment, that's funnier than Dave Chappelle watching Democratic Socialist America convention from 2019. But it's look, they're really going crazy here because they lost one. They thought they had a lock on this, and now a Democratic moderate is in there. And if the guy actually performs a moderate, he might get elected. The Republican might not win, and maybe he does 2 terms, and Wisconsin returns to normality under a Democrat. Wouldn't that be something, Todd?
It would be interesting, and like I said, a loyal opposition, a moderate Democrat, even going back to, say, Bill Clinton, regardless of his reprehensible behavior, he was fairly moderate. I mean, what happened to those types of Democrats? What happened to the Kennedy Democrats? Where did they go? How did they become communists? I mean, Kennedy stood up to the communists for crying out. He stared down Khrushchev, and Khrushchev blinked, as they said. And now what are we doing? We're looking to usher that type of government in. It's not sustainable. It will collapse us even further or quicker than we're already working on collapsing with our mounting debt.
Yeah, no doubt about it. But this guy Crowley entered the race just last month. I mean, the guy wasn't even in the race. You want to talk about a good deal? You enter a primary. He barely had to knock any doors. Just 1 month, and he wins it.
Right.
I mean, that's what a good deal for him, John. I mean, wouldn't you like that? You enter the race, and next month you win it.
That tells me the voters were already unsatisfied with their choices. So when he came in there, it was like somebody fresh, somebody new, and moderate. And I think you're seeing a lot now in the news that the parties have an internal strife. They're what they call the civil war going on with the Democrats. Like you were saying with DSA and then the DNC, or moderates, where I think people are starting to lean back towards moderates. They're seeing what Trump is accomplishing. They're seeing what Trump is doing, and they're realizing the socialist Democrats are taking them down the wrong roads. They're saying the wrong things, and their promises really aren't leading up to anything but disaster for people. So I think it's chaos. It's been chaos is what it's been. So I think people's eyes have opened up now, and they're trying to find something more stable. Now you're seeing moderates coming in and getting scooped up.
Well, the Washington Compost ran the story on this. And of course, like the New York Times, they're incapable of having one journalist write an article because they're lazy, so they team up. So this is from Patrick Marley, Teo Armis, and Clara Ence Morse. And they said, for weeks, leftists celebrated and establishment Democrats fretted over what seemed increasingly inevitable. Francesca Hong, a state lawmaker and former restaurant owner who was poised to become the first Democratic socialist in decades to win a primary for governor. That came crashing down in the early morning hours Wednesday, as Milwaukee County Executive, a relative moderate, defied polls to notch a narrow victory in Wisconsin's Democratic race. Supporters and detractors agreed that voters appear to be increasingly worried about whether Hong team nominee Tom Tiffany the House in a state that voted twice for President Trump. Those questions became especially prominent in the final days of the campaign as Hong tried to explain old social media posts, including one that called for canceling Thanksgiving as a holiday, which were amplified in news accounts and outside ads. I don't think that the people voting have the freaking common sense to realize that idiots like Mandami and Al Said in Michigan and this clown Hong hate America. They hate Christians. They hate conservatives. They hate white people, and they hate America's traditions. Wake up, you idiots, and start smelling the coffee. At least enough Democrats in the state of Wisconsin for once did that. You know what? Again, I don't care. The fact that this lunatic is kept out of office is a saving grace, Todd.
Oh, I agree with you 100%. You know, and think about this: to save yourself, you can't just leave a state. To save our country, you can't just pick up and move somewhere else. And especially you can't pick up and move somewhere else and keep voting the same way. Here in Tennessee, we've seen Democrats this past election pick up a number of seats at the local level and are actually pushing to try to pick up some congressional seats and our gubernatorial seat as well. You know, they're making strides in our state. We have a lot of lefties who've moved here from California and New York, and they're pushing the same politics that's destroyed New York and California. Folks got to realize, hey, you know, this is going to happen. You need to come out and vote, especially the moderates that are out there, the middle of the road people, the people that are on the right, and even those middle left people should realize those people are not your ally. You know, you may have to actually vote for a Republican. You may have to hold your nose to do it. But to save our republic, to save our form of government, and of course, to save our economy, et cetera, you may have to actually come out and vote for a conservative or a Republican on the ballot. You can't allow these people to come in the state and or your local states and destroy it, and they will.
Well, Todd, not all immigration has been bad. I mean, Tennessee picked up Robbie Starbuck as a resident. That's a good.
Oh yeah. I like Robbie. Robbie and I. He sat at my table a few years ago at our Statesman's dinner. It's our big GOP fundraiser in Nashville. So I like Robbie. He's a good guy.
Absolutely, he certainly is. Listen, you know, we talk about immigration fraud quite a bit on this program. We've talked about the Somali layering centers, and we've talked about what's going on with South African refugees. But the Department of Justice has charged 11 people with allegedly helping foreign nationals, primarily Chinese, to obtain green cards through a marriage fraud scheme, according to an indictment unsealed today. Naturalized U.S. citizens originally from, guess where? China. And one green card holder, according to Attorney General Todd Blanche, yes, it was just confirmed, Todd Blanche, in a 50-49 vote. The defendants have been charged with conspiracy to commit marriage fraud and immigration fraud and conspiracy to encourage unlawful residence of aliens in the United States. 11 people, 1,000 sham marriages organized by these scumbags. And I'm so happy to see that we have a Department of Justice that is following the rule of law and is prosecuting criminals. I wish they would turn their attention to Dr. Fauci and all the officials, NIH, the CDC, the White House staff, who colluded to silence, in violation of the First Amendment, Americans and take our civil liberties away by colluding, cajoling, or coercing the tech. They would spend time doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. They didn't spend enough time investigating that. They didn't try to prosecute anybody for that. You know, it's funny because I remember a lot of people are still on TikTok, and I look at that platform and I think, what a crappy platform. Remember when that was a free speech platform when China owned it? Ironically, when China had it, it was free speech.
Right.
And now they forced to sell a majority of American TikTok, and it's so censored as incredible. You can't say words on there, or I mean, they really come down on you. They delete your lives, they delete your page. I've known so many people that say things on TikTok, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm on my 40th page now. Well, I'll build another one here in a moment." You know, it's incredible. Facebook backed off.
Well, you say that, but
I think YouTube backed off a little bit.
Well, YouTube has backed off a lot, but TikTok has been atrocious from the outset. I have an account on there. I got millions of views, and then I was live chatting, and they just deleted my live, and then they stopped promoting my channel, and they hid it. That was under the Chinese, so it's always been evil. Maybe some people had a better experience, but I've always had a bad experience with TikTok. Other than watching, Germans do, rapid speech with the Rutabaga song there. That's the rhubarb song. But it's always been an evil platform, John. I've never liked it.
you got a point. You know, I do recall when I first come onto TikTok, I was looking at it going, what am I going to do with this? I mean, I'm not doing dance fads, bro. I'm not consider doing dance fads. So what can I do with this platform? And this was before all the politics hit it and all the truck drivers hit it. And I'm like, I don't know what to do with it. So I just let it sit there. Sometimes I scroll through it and look at it. I'm like, going, yeah, just a bunch of kids stuff happening here. I don't know what to do with it. And next thing you know, truck drivers are doing lives on there and videos on there. And then politics got on there. And yeah, you're right. That's about the time all the censorship started, Chris.
Yeah, no, it's definitely. I dealt
TikTok
with the censorship. It was not pleasant.
Yeah, TikTok and Instagram to me and is basically light porn. Somebody trying to sell you something, you know, like, hey, look at me, you know. It's some sicko stuff on there too, you know. Come to this website or whatever. You know, you're scrolling through it, you see that type of stuff.
They try to fund you to their other sites, and their other sites are adult sites and stuff.
It's basically, it's like here it is out there for anybody to see. You know, it's like anybody who's on there, a kid could be on there and see all this nonsense. You know, it's sicko stuff.
Yeah, I don't usually do Instagram, but recently somebody shared something that was on Instagram. I was scrolling through. I go, oh, see-through nightgowns, okay. Flashing, okay. I didn't know that Meta allowed this stuff on their platforms.
They do. It's sick.
With Facebook, they don't. They delete that stuff. But apparently, Instagram, it's all over there. So I guess I just announced that to all the teenagers out there. But any that might be listening, I don't know any teenagers going to listen to this show. But
well, speaking of this show, folks, you're listening to the Common Sense Conservatives on WSMN out of Nashua, New Hampshire, every Wednesday evening from 7 to 9 p.m. 1900, 2100 for the military folks. Or those international. It's at 1590 on your AM dial if you're in the area, and 95.3 FM. And as Todd likes to say, you can find us on the interwebs all over the place. It's on Facebook, on YouTube. And you're welcome to join us every Wednesday night where we have expertise from the trucking industry and transportation in the form of John Grosvenor, and also someone with experience in White House communications and a retired senior non-commissioned officer, my colleague, Todd McKinley. And myself, a jack of many trades, expert, I'm not sure which one, Colonel Chris Wyatt. So thanks for joining us. We're talking tonight about politics as usual in America and the recent primaries that occurred last night. And now we're talking about immigration fraud. So let's shift our focus to the story of the slimy New York Times, or New York, which is happy to reveal classified information endangering the United States core by telling people how he secretly circumvented Iran occurred in his Turkey during the NATO summit, and he boarded the plane, the old blue Air Force One, and in a catering van, and they tried to make it sound like he was running away. And it's really, I think, White House officials or somebody revealed this information here and have now compromised the safety on future efforts if the president. Now they'll simply target every U.S. that is in the area when they're going after the president. This, to me, was egregious.
No, I agree with you. I remember being on duty back whenever we snuck President Bush into Iraq, you know, and whenever I got on duty at the White House, they briefed everybody and they're like, hey, it's embargoed. You can't talk about it. Can't tell anybody. You know, obviously we're not going to. I'm working in an operations center. I'm not going to call people and be like, hey, by the way, you know, somebody would figure that out. But, you know, I see the need for secrecy in these types of situations. I get maybe if you're on that plane where you'd feel like, well, we were targets, you know, whatever. It's like, no, the president was the target, you know, not you. You're going to leave the country regardless. I mean, should they have told them maybe as they're taking off? I don't know. Embargoed the story. Possibly they should have done something like that. But you know, somebody would have got on their phone immediately, and that would have been reported. And now all of a sudden, that C-32 he was flying on would have been jeopardized.
Well, my problem with this is that if the press, if their feelings are decoy as a target, then they shouldn't be flying an Air Force One. They can fly in a commercial flight like the rest of us.
That's another
and they
point.
can interview the president. They can interview the president when he lands. Frankly, I don't think the press has any damn business on Air Force One, in my view.
They're there as guests, by the way. There's no requirement to have them. It's just something that they do as a courtesy. And of course, the people that they work for has to pay for a first-class seat on Air Force One. They have to reimburse the Air Force for that seat.
Agreed, but I think they have no business on the plane. It's a distraction from the mission, and I don't think it's particularly helpful. Remember when President Bush flew to Katrina, and the press released photos and tried to make the story that he was too frightened to land or too callous to land because black people were dying, which was utter nonsense. He simply would have distracted from the rescue mission with all that happens. For those who don't know what happens when POTUS lands, it is quite the logistical show.
It is. And you got to think all the local state law enforcement that would have to focus on protecting him, being around where he's at, versus going out and actually trying to rescue people who are dying, who need the help, who are out there dehydrated, who need food, who need rescue because they're on top of their house, for crying out loud. Now, all of a sudden, you're going to have to focus on securing him. And then that would be the story. He took away from the recovery effort, which is stupid. He flew down, did the right thing, observed it from above, and of course, listened to the government officials that were on the ground, as he should. That was a proper move on President Bush's part.
I agree. Well, I suppose that if it had been Joe Biden's FBI and the abysmal protection they provided to former presidents, then it wouldn't matter. I mean, if this was a Butler, Pennsylvania scene for Katrina, then Bush could have landed because no cops would have shown up.
Right. Right, absolutely. And of course, as somebody's shooting from a roof, no cops are going to show up until a sniper takes him out. Come on.
The guy gets off half a dozen shots before somebody even realizes he's there. So, John, any thoughts on this one? Have you heard this story, and are you surprised the New York Slimes actually revealed what I consider to be classified information about national security and the president's safety?
Yeah, I caught parts of it. I didn't catch the whole thing, but I did hear about him. They had to transfer him in a food container or something to conceal him so that they can move him to another plane. But I hadn't realized anybody reported that and released that and put anybody in jeopardy.
Well, I'm just glad to see people expose New York Slimes because that's what they are. They don't care about America.
Yeah.
They just care about their clicks, and they will compromise anything to achieve that, particularly if it satisfies a leftist narrative. Speaking of leftist narratives, Todd, I don't know if you saw this, but it's 2 strikes for the Southern Poverty Law Center. They tried to get the case thrown out, and the government said, no, you will, in fact, federal Southern Poverty Law Center today, accusing her of signing off on fraudulent bank payments that have put the storied civil rights organization in the Justice Department's crosshairs. I would not call the Southern Poverty Law Center a storied. I would call a criminal enterprise based on the federal indictments. But Heidi Byrich was arrested in California, and I hope she enjoys her jail cell tonight, Todd.
No, absolutely, Heidi. You're not going to be back on that Swiss Miss packet anytime soon. You should be in the jail. And of course, several other people need to be there with you. I hope this ends the Southern Poverty Law Center once and for all. It is a corrupt organization. And like you said, they funded the Klan, for crying out loud. They funded the people that they're opposing. It's like, is it to a degree that racism in the Klan in America has such a little appeal, such few followers, that you have to actually fund people to join it and be associated with it so you can have somebody to oppose? I mean, come the heck on. You're making up your enemy, for crying out loud. It's sad.
Well, it actually proves the point I'm making for years. I mean, I've never seen the Klan anyway. The only time I've ever seen the Klan in America was in 1978 when they said they were going to oppose federal imposed busing in Columbus, Ohio, and the Klan said they're going to show up in force, and like 18 idiots showed up with robes, and they look stupid on the news on WBNS. I've never seen the Klan. They basically are moribund for most parts, as are any of these right-wing groups that they claim exist. It seems that most of them exist because they get funding from the Southern Poverty Law Center. They're just a criminal enterprise based what the federal indictment says, and I can't wait to see them go down in flames. And you know what? The American Criminal Liberties Union should go right
bingo
after them, Todd.
No, I agree with you 100%. Them and there's several other organizations that are out there that are corrupt that need to go down. And also the people who helped fund some of the Summer of Love a few years ago, burning down buildings and government buildings, police cars, etc., beating people up, killing people. Those organizations should go down as well. Black Lives Matter and anybody who Antifa, anybody who had a hand in that should go down as well. To me, they're terrorist organizations.
Well,
domestic
BLM got themselves exposed.
Yeah, and Antifa is a domestic terrorist organization, has been finally declared as such, long overdue.
Right.
The fact that we're not running FBI stings to round up all these dirtbags and imprison them for life is a bit shocking, John. I would like to see these clowns behind bars.
Yeah, me too. I don't know why there's not enough investigations, but you know how it is too. Sometimes it's just they can't quite get all the evidence they need to justify a case, and so some people slip through the cracks, and that's very unfortunate because it expresses crime pays for some of these people. What was that old saying? The easy, and BLM proved that. The one of the quickest ways to get rich is start a 501c3.
Yeah.
Because anybody can start one. You don't have to have a degree. You don't have to have anything, just the ability to file. And BLM proved that. They file a 501c3, and these people are making impoverished wages. And all of a sudden, they're multimillionaires. And people are riding in the streets on their behalf. It was nuts. Although I got to say, in all fairness, too, they started BLM and they started their activities. And what's the name of that? The new Black Panther Party integrated themselves with them. So a lot of that may not have been BLM as much as it was the new Black Panther Party, in all fairness.
Well, whoever it is, their actions are reprehensible and they need to be pursued. Speaking of reprehensible, John, Human Rights Watch, which cloaks itself in protecting human rights, has filed a frivolous lawsuit along with 3 other advocacy groups against the Trump administration over its sanctions against the International Criminal Court based in the Netherlands. I don't see how these organizations have standing over an organization, and it's a state to international organization. I don't think Human Rights Watch has any standing here. This case should be dismissed with lack of merit. The complaint from yesterday, filed in the Southern District of New York, seeks to challenge sanctions imposed on UN human rights expert and 3 Palestinian groups: Human Rights Watch, American Friends Service Committee, the Center for Constitutional Rights, and surprise, surprise, the Open Society Institute of George Soros argued the sanctions undermine the court's ability to prosecute people responsible for some of humanity's worst crimes. Well, that may be true, but that isn't germane. None of them have standing to sue the U.S. government over its foreign policy. If this is a domestic issue, they would have standing. They should shut their cake-holes, move down the road, and continue undermining society in the way they usually do it until we catch them in a criminal enterprise like we caught the Southern Poverty Law Center, Todd.
There you go. Absolutely. Yeah. You have no standing in an international court. Also, I don't care what an international court says anyway. Our government should never respond to it. I mean, unless you're talking about somebody trying somebody for war crimes or something like that, that's to be the only reason why you should ever respond to it.
I don't think we qualify on that, right? We're
not a party to anyway, I don't believe, right?
Yeah, no, we're not.
We are not. We are not a signatory to the Rome Statute. We never entered it because the countries refused to sign Article 98 waivers protecting its service members and elected political leaders. But the point here is that I'm arguing that this is the United States foreign organizations. What standing does Human Rights Watch, based in New York City, have to in this, or any of them? They have no standing in this. They have no dog in this fight. If people trying to reverse the fraud that took place in Pennsylvania have no standing, according to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, these are people that live in Pennsylvania. How can these clowns have standing over an organization that's in the Netherlands, that's an international body? It's absolutely ridiculous on its merits, and it makes no sense. This is another frivolous lawsuit by leftists wasting money given by suckers donating it to these criminal enterprises so that they can undermine national sovereignty of this nation. I mean, that's my...
I want to know where they're getting the money from. We shut down USAID, didn't we?
Well, Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International get money from all over the world. And they get lots of money, lots of corporate donors that think they're making the world better, and they're actually not.
I was being a wise guy, because they were caught funneling U.S. funds into their little organizations and using them against us.
So we do have a question here.
Oh, good.
Sorry, yeah, we do have a question here. I think it's pretty good. A lot of good discussion going on. This is from Holden. He says, I was hoping the Colonel would bring up these mysterious drones flying around Diego Garcia if you want to. If not, by all means, let's not discuss it. But anyway, I thought it was an interesting question.
What's mysterious about them? They're drones.
Drones flying around. I don't know. I imagine they're allied, if they're flying around Diego Garcia, right?
Well, Diego Garcia is in the middle of literally freaking nowhere. So, I mean, who has the ability to launch a drone out there except the people occupying Diego Garcia? Maybe they're there for aerial maritime surveillance around the island.
Right, absolutely. So nothing nefarious going on there, I imagine, right?
I don't think so. I mean, if we were talking about Carg Island, we'd have a different story going on there. If we were talking about Manhattan, we'd have a different story.
Oh,
But
for sure.
Diego
Yeah.
Garcia is literally the back end of the planet. It's the middle of nowhere in the Chagos Islands, in the Indian Ocean. But you're talking about funneling money. Lockheed Martin just won a $58.6 billion contract to deliver Patriot missiles by the end of 2030. Wow. 7-year deal.
Interesting.
Excuse me, I've got some crud here I can't get rid of. It's keeping going here. But it's a lot of money for Patriots. That's going to be an awful lot of Patriots. It's a huge contract. I mean, if you don't have Lockheed Martin stock, you didn't buy it before today, you're probably kicking yourself in the backside. It's a lot of money coming their way.
Yeah, I imagine
Speaking
so.
of
Yeah, I wish I could do
speaking of
insider
military,
trading like Congress.
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice? It'd be like that Time Cop where the guy goes
Yeah, steals the gold.
back, that Jean-Claude Van Damme movie where the guy goes back in time, the stock market when it crashed, and they all come back later on. Yeah, that would be so cool. But an AH-64 Apache has crashed at Fort Hood, and 2 people were killed, presumably a pilot and co-pilot in that. It started a fire in the forest there. No indication why the Apache crashed. I'm not sure if they couldn't auto-rotate and safely land, but it has crashed and there are 2 fatalities. And unfortunate, but again, people lose sight of the fact that the military is a dangerous profession. People die, unfortunately, many times, if not every day, throughout the year in the military. We have deaths because it is a dangerous occupation, and that gets lost on some people. So now Oman says they are going to stop shipping through the Strait of Hormuz altogether unless they agree to a voluntary payment scheme like the Strait of Malacca over there in Asia, where people voluntarily contribute funds that are for search and rescue and for environmental cleanup and such. They're not going to pay tolls. Well, nobody should be paying tolls. I think we should make that pretty clear. Todd, I think it's inappropriate. It's international waters, and no one, in my view, has a right to claim a toll to the Strait of Hormuz.
Right. Yeah, there shouldn't be any tolls. And now, I would agree if there was an issue, where you need search and rescue, things like that. We should all pitch in situations like that for sure, especially if you're a nation that's right along the strait. And if talking about environmental cleanup, if necessary to clean up, internationally we should pitch in on something like that. But there shouldn't be a one nation collecting some sort of fund on that. It's whenever we do need to pitch in, we pitch in and do the right thing in a scenario like that. But somebody collecting that money, it's not going to be used for that. It's going to be used for other purposes. Like if Iran took that money, they'd be using it to fund their missiles and of course their drone technology, etc. And we can't have that.
Agreed. But Qatar has said the priority is freedom of navigation, meaning you do not need to ask permission to pass through the strait. 100%.
Right.
It was made clear to the Iranians, to the Americans, and the Omanis who are managing this. This is a red line. We are willing to close shop and wait this out rather than agree to terms and include payment and passage. Of course, Qatar can do that. They're sitting on a pile of cash, and their small country can survive as long as they need to. That isn't necessarily the case for other countries in the region, but Qatar can survive this. So I'm glad to hear that, because this nonsense of paying tolls in the Strait of Hormuz is exactly that nonsense.
Right.
John, I don't think anyone should pay for it. I mean, it violates the Convention on the Law of Sea. It's not allowing people to do that.
You're absolutely right. I don't understand where this comes from. I assume you're talking about Iran is trying to charge tolls again, and sometimes I kind of miss it. You get a little broke up sometimes. I miss some of what you say at times, but this is absolute and total nonsense, Chris.
Well, John, that's because my voice is so powerful it overwhelms the digital swave, and some of the syllables get munched out there.
The digital gods got nothing on Chris Wyatt.
Well, speaking of digital, this isn't really digital, but the former Disney CEO, Bob Iger, has teamed up to purchase the Los Angeles Lakers for, get this, $12.5 billion. Todd, I mean, that's like Dr. Evil money, $12.5 billion. I mean, that's insane. The Lakers? No, thank you. I'll pass.
Right. Are they worth it? I mean, how long is it going to take you to recoup that type of money, for crying out loud? Unless it's just you want it as a jewel in your cap or something, if you will, your crown. I don't know. It's a status thing, maybe.
I think so. That's what it's all about. It's rich boys and their rich toys. I think this is what it's all about, John. The rich guys want to show off that they own something.
I guess, maybe they got like hundreds of billions of dollars to play with. What's $12 billion, right? I don't get it either. Sometimes I've thought about that quite a few times in the past. These people buying these corporations for $40 billion, $50 billion. Like, how much money could they possibly be taking in? You got to really wonder that. I mean, when you're talking about net profits and stuff, tell me you pay all your costs of doing business and stuff. What are you really taking in? But I don't know if they're looking at long-term goals, over a span of like 15 years, 20 years, and it kind of narrows it down for them. But yeah, it seems like huge sums of money.
It is a lot of money. And, you need a lot of money if you go to Europe, where there was a total eclipse, not of the heart, that's what we would say, but rather a total eclipse of the sun blocked by the moon from Iceland to Spain. People flocked to viewing spots to see this. And Europeans, of course, still stuck in the 13th century, thought that the world was coming to an end. I hear they sold all their stocks in Ireland and moved to Scotland to avoid the eclipse, Todd.
The Irish moved to Scotland to avoid eclipse. I mean, imagine that. I mean, when the Scots moved to Ireland, whenever they were moved over there, the Scotch-Irish, they didn't like that too much. I don't know if the Scots would like that either, right? The reverse of that.
Exactly. No, but a total eclipse, first one in decades over Europe, and it was quite the viewing event. I understand that those little glasses you can buy so you don't go blind looking at the eclipse were sold out in pharmacies and in shops that sold them, as well as Amazon apparently ran out of them too. Pretty interesting. People get excited about total eclipse. I've seen a couple total eclipses. We had an eclipse that passed over Pennsylvania. Was it last year or the year before?
Right.
And that was pretty impressive nonetheless, even though I wasn't in the direct path of total eclipse. But have you ever seen a total eclipse there, John?
I can't remember that I've ever seen one. Here, didn't we just have one here a few months back, and it happened, but I don't recall it happening. I was in a position to see it.
It's a rather unique experience, Todd. I mean, it's really weird. Can you imagine if you were the Celts and you're out there, 5,000 years ago in Ireland or in Wales or somewhere like that, and the sun just disappeared? Imagine the panic for people who didn't understand what was actually happening in the celestial night.
Right. Yeah. You don't have the science or the technology or the understanding of it. You think that the gods are mad at you for a moment. And what do? You start sacrificing people. I don't know. Maybe the sun will come back if we kill 20 more people. I don't know. It's weird, but yeah, it's interesting. I'm glad we have what we have now, the technology, the understanding of, our solar system, and our the space in general, if you will, with what we do, with what technology we do have. I'm glad we understand these things.
Weren't the Druids known to be a little bit more suspicious of less concerning matters?
I don't think the Druids were more suspicious, but I tell you, the Mayans, cutting the hearts out of living victims to sacrifice them. I'm sure that was probably a lot of that happening around an eclipse.
Yeah, and it's funny as if you realize that, this is a natural phenomenon. You're like, oh my bad, sorry I cut your heart out, buddy. You want it back?
Really wasn't appeasing the gods, bro.
You want it back?
Well, guys, after 8 decades of on-screen roles in Hollywood, the nonagenarian Julie Andrews is stepping away from acting. 90 years old, she's finally stepping away from acting. What an impressive life Julie Andrews has had. Of course, she soared to fame in The Sound of Music. Roger and Hammerstein's opening scene in The Sound of Music is indelible for those who watched the movie. The story of the Austrians who escaped the Nazi occupation of Austria by slipping across the border. She was in The Princess Diaries 1 with Anne Hathaway back in 2001 and the sequel in 2004. They're doing a third version, Princess Diaries 3, but she's 90 years old and she has confirmed she will not reprise her role as Queen.
Man.
Renault. And John said, I think the absolute truth is that I think I'm really past all that now. I'm not completely retired, but it's a different kind of work that I do these days, writing books. I do a lot of recording for podcasts and voiceovers. But she's not going to act anymore. And what a lovely lady. What an incredible talent. Julie Andrews has done some amazing roles over the years. And what I've seen of her, Todd, she's always been quite humble. I don't know if that's who she really is, but that's how she's appeared to me.
Right. And here's the thing with people in entertainment and Hollywood, etc. eventually the real person comes out. People will tell, the behind the scenes stories, and you've never heard anything negative about her from behind the scenes. It's always positive. She's always nice, very cordial with her fans, etc. So yeah, if there was something negative about her, I think it would have probably come out in 80 years she's been on screen.
I think so, and I think she's just a genuine person. John, the other big role, of course, she was famous for is one with Dick Van Dyke, who's also still with us. Thank goodness, Dick Van Dyke. I think he's approaching close to 100, if he's not 100 already. And that was with Mary Poppins. You remember that one, John?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I wasn't into them, but I think those movies came out before I was born.
Yes, they did, and I didn't see either of them. I just recently, a couple years ago. But I've never really watched Mary Poppins in entirety. But of course, even if you don't watch Mary Poppins, you still know the stuff. A spoonful of sugar, that still sticks in your head because it was just so ubiquitous. But I mean, Julie Andrews, what a legend. I mean, and Dick Van Dyke, another legend. And it's great to see her finally take a little time for herself at the age of 90, John.
Yeah, no, you're right about some of them old shows and stuff, man. My wife and I turn on Tubi anymore and just throw on Dick Van Dyke or Bewitched or some of the old shows. They were all good shows. I didn't even know Julie Andrews was still acting until you just told us tonight. I had no clue. Didn't even know she was, to be honest with you, still alive. Not to sound crude about it, but being up there in age and stuff, I didn't even realize. But it's good to hear she's still alive and thriving. Nice for her.
She's alive with the sound of music, John.
She is. She's alive with the sound of music. I love it.
I thought the Hills were alive.
They're right. Yeah. They also have eyes too, by the way. The Hills have eyes.
Well, speaking of people walking, another person walking away, much younger person, but will no doubt give the leftist joy. Carolyn Levitt, the White House press secretary, and one of those public-facing officials of the Trump administration, more time with her family after the birth of her second child. She's leaving at the end of the month, and she says she totally understands it's time to step away, and people respect that decision. So Carolyn Levitt, who's given chest pains to too many leftists, but liked by the press corps nonetheless, Todd, she'll be stepping away finally.
Right. Well, the funny thing is, the bloggers, the podcasters, they obviously don't like her because they're not going to like anybody a Republican throws up there. But a lot of the members of the media, from what I've gathered, says that she's actually receptive and actually talks with them. You know what I mean? Whether they believe everything she says, that's besides the point. I get as a member of the media, you should be a little adversarial, but you should be the proper fourth estate instead of, sensationalism and fake news. But I do hear good things that she actually will be responsive to them, and they do appreciate that.
Well, this is what she had to say, and this is going to really burn the shorts of the leftists and the woke crowd as well as the feminists. The truth, since returning to the White House after the birth of my daughter, I have felt in my heart that I cannot be the best mom while devoting the constant time, energy, and attention required to the White House press secretary. And that is why I've ultimately made the bittersweet decision to depart the White House and embark on a new chapter of my life. I mean, of course, they're going to go conservatives and barefoot and pregnant, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a woman who is at the pinnacle of power. She wasn't in power, but it was around her, and she presented the power to the world, and she's stepping away to raise her children. You got to respect that, Todd.
Oh, well, for sure. And that's what you should do. Her kids are getting to that age where they're going to need their mother around and obviously their parents around them on a regular basis. And that's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that for sure. Her husband's well off. She's well off at this point. She's going to be able to write books, whatever she wants to do, speaking engagements, but also, be able to be the mom that she really wants to be. And I respect it. No problem there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we should respect that. Folks, just as a programming reminder, I am in South Africa. It is now 2 a.m. and I have to drive for about 5 hours tomorrow. So I'll be dropping off in the second range and keep you informed and entertained in that second hour as we go through. But before I head out for the evening and we get ready to close this hour just moments away, I want to say thanks to everyone who watches this program, and we wish you the best. And I'll see you guys next week. Cheers, gents.
See you, Colonel.
Broadcasting from 200 Main Street in the beautiful and historic Masonic Building. This is WSMN 1590 AM and WSMN 95.3 FM Nashua. Streaming live at wsmn.live.
USA Radio News, I'm Anthony Lucero. President Trump says Iran is under increasing pressure as the U.S. naval blockade continues around the Strait of Hormuz. American forces have fired on a ship accused of trying to break the blockade. Iran says it will not reopen the strait without concessions. 3 members of the same family, including a 7-year-old girl, were found dead at an in-home daycare near Minneapolis. Police Chief Brent Johnston.
Any event involving the loss of life is a difficult process. When children are involved, it's especially devastating.
The father died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The mother and daughter suffered stab wounds. A 78-year-old relative was also found dead nearby. Caroline Leavitt is set to leave her role as the White House press secretary at the end of the month.
President Trump made the announcement on Truth Social. He said Leavitt is one of the most trusted aides and is stepping down so she can spend more time with her family. The president added Leavitt will now be one of his top outside advisors and an influential voice within the Republican Party. Leavitt has served as White House press secretary since Trump began his second term. I'm Chris Caraccio.
Oil and gas prices fell last month, but are climbing again as the war in Iran intensifies.
This really erodes people's purchasing power. It leaves them feeling like we're in a recession because they feel like they're losing ground even if they have a job.
KPMG chief economist Diane Swunk says higher energy costs could make the Federal Reserve more likely to raise interest rates. Former Southern Law Poverty Center executive Heidi Byrich has been arrested. Attorney General Todd Blanche says Byrich helped open bank accounts that funneled money to extremist groups. The Justice Department indicted the group back in April, accusing it of funding organizations it vowed to dismantle.
At the closing bell, the Dow Jones Industrial Average lost 21 points, the S&P 500 gained 20 points, and the Nasdaq rose 143 points. I'm Sarah Lee Kessler.
From America's News Network, USA Radio News.
Maybe this is you too. There's enormous frustration right now with healthcare costs. It is amazing. Healthcare costs for families in the last 20 years have almost tripled, and it just keeps getting worse. All this to say, this is why MediShare is so in demand right now. People are looking for alternatives, and MediShare is proven. You can save thousands of dollars a year and actually like it more. Over 1 million Americans are now part of healthcare sharing, and MediShare is the gold standard. It's trusted. It works. It's been helping people save money and have peace of mind now for 30 plus years. It's not some big impersonal thing either. It's a community of people like you helping each other. So yeah, if you're frustrated too, here's your chance to make a refreshing change. You'll notice the difference as soon as you call. They're easy to talk to. You can get a price within 2 minutes. Here is the number. Call 855-SHARE-40. That's 855-SHARE-40. 855-SHARE-40.
Tired of wondering where your money really goes? At Mammoth Nation, we built what was missing. The America First Marketplace. Every brand we feature is 100% American owned and operated. Rigorously vetted for their values and committed to supporting our Constitution, law enforcement, and the American dream. When you shop with us, your dollar stays in the neighborhood, supporting families, veterans, and charities like Folds of Honor. No more sending your hard-earned money overseas to the companies that don't respect you here. Your dollar reflects your values. Your dollar, your values. Your America. Join Mammoth Nation today and be part of building a patriot economy by going to TruckersUnitedForFreedom.com affiliate page and hit that link. American built, America strong, Mammoth Nation.
Hi, Nashua. I'm Perry Cataldo from Choice Benefit Services, your local insurance agent that has dedicated himself to all the Medicare plans in New Hampshire. Whether you're just turning 65, new to Medicare, or already have a plan, I'll explain all your Medicare options and extra benefits that you hear so much about. I ensure you're getting all you're entitled to and all that you deserve. Nashua, don't get fooled again this year. Call Perry Cataldo at 603-461-5550. That's 603-461-5550. Or visit me online at cbsnh.com. That's cbsnh.com. I look forward to hearing from you. And remember, health is wealth.
Continuing the legacy started in 1904, Roger Pellerin of Gate City Monument Incorporated continues to provide the same high-quality monument, custom headstone, and stoneworking craftsmanship today that they built their reputation on over 100 years ago, servicing Nashua, New Hampshire, as well as nearby areas in Massachusetts, such as Lowell, Billerica, Chelmsford, and beyond. From creating custom monuments to memorialize, to landscaping and granite work or restorative services, each job is done to your satisfaction and is backed by decades of experience and integrity. If you're thinking about stonework, think Roger Pellerin of Gate City Monument. Visit online at gatecitymonument.com. Stop by and meet Roger at 321 West Hollis Street in Nashua, or call 603-883-7141. That's 603-883-7141. Gate City Monument, memorials of distinction for people who care.
All right. Hey, folks, welcome back to the Common Sense Conservatives right here on WSMN 1590 AM and 95.3 FM. Also live on the internet at wsmn.live. That's wsmn.live. And of course, like the Colonel said just before he signed off there at the end, we're available on many podcast streaming platforms, social media, et cetera, et cetera. Check us out. We're live every Wednesday night, 7 to 9 Eastern, right here on WSMN. We help bring you back to reality from the inverted reality we are subject to every day. Of course, I'm joined by my co-host, John Grosvenor, who holds down the studio quite faithfully in his bat cave there, it looks like. We never really get to see John up close and personal. He likes the far-off camera that's in the studio, and it does look like he's in a bat cave, especially when it's not summertime, whenever it gets dark early. John, what do you think?
Yeah, when it gets dark, the camera doesn't work well at night here. I noticed with the lighting. We did have one that's we still have it right here. I could probably put it on myself, but I don't get a good place to put it. And so yeah, I don't know. We just kind of roll with it. Usually, when it's the three of us, nobody cares. But
no,
when it's the two of us, you get to be front and center.
That's all right. Yeah, but it is cool that you do hold down the studio. Much appreciated for sure. And of course, for those who are joining us on the radio or not seeing us on the streaming platforms, Colonel Chris Wyatt is in South Africa, and of course it is late there, and he has dropped off. He said he has a long drive tomorrow, and only a few hours of sleep he's going to be able to get tonight. He's going to be in South Africa, like you said, too, the 1st of September, the first week of September. I can't remember the exact day he said, but he said the 2nd, maybe. I can't remember. But he's there taking meetings, doing meet and greets, probably conducting interviews, doing his own shows, if you will, that he normally does on his own platforms, which we certainly appreciate, because it does help promote this show as well in a lot of ways. Having that audience be integrated into our audience here, which is very much appreciated for sure. Everybody who listens to us or watches us in South Africa, or the refugees who've come over, we really appreciate the fact that you tune in. And of course, the Colonel brings a lot of great information to the table to bear with regards to the refugee program, etc. And like you said, not everybody will apply. Some people will be disappointed, but I do imagine if you're wondering, the ins and outs of the program, if you're thinking about it, reach out to the Colonel Chris Wyatt, and ask his thoughts, ask his advice, and I'm sure he'll steer you in the right direction for sure. But of course, for the second hour, he's not going to be here. It'll be John and I holding down the studio and the fort, if you will. John, what are some things you want to talk about this second hour?
Oh, well, you know how it is. Once you ask that question, my mind goes blank.
Of course.
But, we were talking about inflation in the first hour, and I made a mention about wages don't keep up with inflation, but I think it's a lot of things, isn't it? Don't you think it's, I'm not an economist by any means, but when we experience inflation, we've been experiencing inflation. I think it affects businesses too. A lot of small businesses, a lot of large corporate entities seem to do pretty well with it. But you start hearing these stupid ideas. What was this they were talking about? I'm trying to think of which state. But there's a hospital that are putting out bids for jobs now. So basically, if you're a senior nurse in this hospital and making I don't know what the nurses make anymore, $50 an hour or something, but you got lower nurses making, say, $30 an hour, but they're putting bids into positions so that, the better paying or the better prime times that people want to work and stuff. But they're bidding with a wage for that schedule, right? Wow. So it's like a race to the bottom they're creating. So it's kind of like these corporations are getting creative in a way to kind of pit these employees against it. It seems to me maybe it might even violate. I don't know if it violates labor laws or not. I don't see where there's any laws regarding that, but you're seeing these sort of strategies. And in trucking, we deal with lease purchase programs and
Right.
things like that. These are predator lease programs. They did have the truck leasing committee. They're trying to make determinations of what they need to do about these predator leasing. And there's people out there working for free or going in debt to work for these corporate entities because they're leasing them trucks, and you're going to be an owner operator, but they control all the flow of freight. And so due to the regulations, you see these guys that are really just running for broke. And I known people, they're not eating because they can't afford to eat because they don't have any money coming in. All the money's going just to run this truck. It's nonsensical. And so I think a lot of it has to do with inflation and then how inflation takes its toll on the course of business, where the cost of things go up and businesses can't be competitive as things inflate. And so you're seeing people making less and less wages. Like I was looking at jobs I known to pay $17 in 2004, 22 years ago, should be paying almost $31 today, but they're offering these jobs out there for $24, $25 an hour.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get it. There's a lot of reasons behind all of it. Some of it is, the fact that people are cheapskates. People are, and I'm not talking about people that are working, but people at the top, some of them are cheapskates. Some of them want to, maximize how many nickels they can make off of somebody. You know what I'm saying? Versus paying them the fair wage. So there is a lot of factors like you just said, for sure.
Well, you look at a corporate entity, he's got 100,000 employees. If they can knock off $2 an hour per employee, they're saving $200,000, right? An hour.
Right off the bat.
So,
and
it adds up for them, for the employees.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, it's only $2 an hour, but I could use that. But for them, they're like, oh, well, $200,000 an hour, we'll take it.
Yeah, but $2 an hour over the course of say 8 to 10 hour day, 4 or 5 day work week, that adds up. And of course, throughout the month and a year, that's a lot of money you're taking out of your pocket, out of your bank account, and of course, food out of your kid's mouth, etc. That could be the difference of getting braces for your kids or getting the medicine that they need or whatever the case may be, that people need to survive. It is a real situation. You say, oh, it's only $1 an hour or $2 an hour. But it adds up over the long term. And of course, over the course of somebody's career of working, whether they work 25, 30 years, that's a lot of money that they're leaving on the table because somebody wants to nickel and dime them.
Yeah, exactly. Because they're not appreciated.
Right.
Sometimes it's discouraging. And it sounds like we're aligning with the liberal left some, but it's really not aligning.
No.
Common sense.
We're not. We're saying people should be paid a fair wage. Not paid just to be alive, not to be given cradle to the grave, money, healthcare, all this stuff. You have to work for it and earn it. Unless you're truly disabled, mentally, physically disabled, retired, and you've earned your pension, etc. But if you're able-bodied, like Teddy Roosevelt said, the requisite of being a good citizen is the person must pull his or her own weight. I know I paraphrased it, but basically that's what he said, and it still applies today. We're talking about fair wages for people. That's what we're saying.
Yes, something more accommodating.
Right.
So, well, at least keep up with wages. I mean, for the cost of inflation, right? You think there would be a balance there, but I think sometimes inflation though takes its tolls on business, and that's why you see, because of the stretch, you see things depreciating in value, like labor.
Right.
But now we've also got the other thing. Like I was on the phone with some friends today. We were, I don't normally like it when I get added to conference calls, but it was just the three of us having a conversation, so it wasn't terribly bad. And I got one friend who's working on a project, and I got another friend who's talking about his wife in the at the food bank, waiting in line for hours and still can't get up to the front of the line. He says it's bad. And this is out in the Midwest. I'm like, what's going on over there? And the other one who's got a project going on says, where you been, man? I'm like, what do you mean, where have I been? I've been in New Hampshire and Massachusetts. What's going on where you live? I don't understand what's going on. And like, dude, people are losing jobs. They're using autonomy now, and they're using robotics and warehouses and stuff. People are getting run out of their jobs. It's actually happening today. They said it wouldn't happen for years from now, but it is happening today. So, and of course, the more people who become unemployed, the more it depreciates the value of labor because they're fighting for scraps.
But here's the thing. The more we embrace technology and AI and all this stuff, and it's going to be our choice whether we embrace it or not, and we're embracing it wholeheartedly across the board, which is going to lead to the rise of data centers and autonomous jobs and AI doing a lot more jobs. if we push back and don't embrace it and stop using it, it's going to be hard pressed to actually implement things like that. And also, products that companies like this may end up producing, boycott it. Don't buy those types of products. I know it may be hard, but I know we live in a consumer society, but people are going to have to make hard, tough choices that are going to force industry and business owners to make choices that are more accommodating to the society that they're supposed to serve.
Yeah, I got to hang my head low, Todd. I broke down the other day. And
Used AI.
I went into Walmart. Spent
Oh, I swear.
$4.99 at Walmart. I'm like that. I won't go to Walmart unless I absolutely have to.
And what'd you buy, a 9-volt battery for $5?
I bought a card. I bought a
Okay.
card. It was my wife's birthday. I had to get her a
Oh,
card. I'm
gotcha.
going, normally I would just stop off at a pharmacy, but they're closing them all. I'm like, well, okay, I guess I'm going to Walmart. It's on the way home.
Right.
I tried not to
So
go
you
into Walmart.
sacrificed for your wife's birthday. Look at John going to Walmart.
I made the
He had
biggest
to hold his nose
sacrifice.
going in there for TJ. I love it.
I threw a coat on in the summertime so I can cover my head to hide my
Right.
shame.
Yeah, put a hoodie on, sweating as you do it, right?
Looking around for cameras, trying to dodge them, hoping I don't run into anybody I know. But if I do, shame on them. Now,
Right.
I'm not a big fan of Walmart. Big corporation. I guess they're probably not any worse than anybody else. But
Right.
I try to stay away from corporate entities anymore. I don't shop for anything unless I absolutely have to. I've been ordering direct online from manufacturers, but not major manufacturers. I don't see supporting these entities that are part of the World Economic Forum. I'm sorry. I know maybe I'm leaning into the whole conspiracy right thing that's been going on, but hey, you know what? I still defend Israel to this day. I'm not
Right.
turning my back on Trump, and I'm not turning my back on Israel. And some of you guys got to pull your heads out your hindquarters and come to realize you're being misled. You're falling for the very traps you claim to be aware of.
Yep. And here's the thing, backing Israel and their right to exist doesn't mean you have to support their government fully. I support the United States fully, but it doesn't mean I have to support my government 100%. You support your country all the time. You support your government whenever they deserve to be supported. So there is a difference here.
You were quoting Teddy Roosevelt earlier. Wasn't it Teddy who said patriotism isn't just full support or blind support of your government? You question
Right.
authority, right? I'm paraphrasing
Right.
here. Obviously, he didn't say it like that, but
Right.
that was
You should question authority, and we should. And also at the same time, we should regularly vote bad people out, vote good people in, and realize your vote counts. And we're giving away our country by sitting at home and sitting on our hands and then complaining about it. Well, it's all rigged. It's this and that. No, it's not. It's the fact that you want to sit at home and blame somebody else other than looking in the mirror and taking stock in yourself and saying, hey, what blame do I share in all this? And you probably share a lot of blame, especially if you're just, being an economic unit or a consumer. We're a consumer society in a big way. We just take in so many things that we just don't need. We buy so much garbage, knick-knacky nonsense that's made overseas, and we wonder why American manufacturing is going under as it is, because people aren't buying American. And then they say, well, it costs so much to buy American. It's like, if you bought American on a regular, guess what? Those prices would trend downward for sure. That's just the market system.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in buying local. I think we need to
Right.
bolster up locals. We create strong local economies. We'll do a lot better as a society to
Sure.
combat what's going on with this autonomy and stuff for these large corporate entities like Walmart and so on and so forth. No, you buy local. You take care of your local businesses first. Yeah, spend a couple extra dollars, but eventually, once we all get on board with that sort of thing,
Right.
it'll compound and come around.
And people who complain that, the big box stores will put out the mom and pop shops, guess what? Consumers who chose to go shop at them in droves put out mom and pop shops. Let's be clear on that. It's not the corporations that necessarily did that. We as human beings choosing to send our dollars over there because it's more convenient to go into one big box store and it has pretty much everything we need versus going to a strip mall or a downtown area and going store to store to store. And I understand back in the day, you could go to a downtown location, go store to store once a week or once a month and get what you need for sure. But now we have a society where there's a lot more people, and a lot more traffic, etc. So going to the big box stores with big parking lots, etc. I understand the convenience of it, but at the same time, you can't really complain while also being a consumer, which is part of the problem here. But consumerism is a big major part of our problem.
I honestly am not sure it's about the convenience as much as the cost, because big box stores have the ability to buy at discount rates. They're buying in
For
bulk,
sure,
severe
because they buy
bulk,
so
and
much.
So you get this guy who's saying, dude, I'm only making $20 an hour. I got to make ends meet. So I'm going to go get it where I can get it cheapest. But what they don't realize is these big box stores are the ones that got caught bleaching meat. They're the ones that got caught mislabeling items. And there's that thing about some of these, and here again, I think it's the big box store, the Wally World we were just talking about. They were talking about misweighing items. They were marking items that looked like you were getting a discount when you really weren't. You were paying more.
Right. Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah, you can market something, make it seem as if you're getting a deal. Somebody asked me, said, Todd, what does the tag on the back of your shirt say? This actually shirt was made in the U.S., by the way, and it's a presidential service badge here. So these shirts were purchased in the United States and made for some of us who served at the White House military office. So made in America, baby.
Yeah, you get honors, man. You get you served at the White House, and that's kind of like an exclusive little club. There's a Facebook group and everything for those that served at the White House, and that's kind of a thing. It's kind of pretty cool.
Yeah, well, there is a book here I want to plug if I could. It's coming out in September. It's actually available right now. There's a man who we've had on here before, Anthony Knops. Go to anthonyknops.com, ANTHONYKNOPPS.com, all one word. And check out his book. It's it's the No Fail Mission, the men and women of the Presidential Service Badge. And I will be featured in the second edition coming out this September in chapter 9. So I urge everybody to pick up that book and give it a good read. Very interesting stories in the first book, and I'm imagining in the second book there's going to be a lot of interesting stories.
Yeah, we interviewed him on this show. That was
we did. We're going to have him on again, by the way, as we get closer to September 15th, whenever we have the book release party or event at the Army Navy Club in Washington on September 15th, which is a Tuesday. I'll be up there for that, and I'm looking forward to it. And hopefully, get several books. I'll try to get one sent your way for sure. So if you message me your address, I'll make sure you get one.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, absolutely. I did join that Facebook group because I thought it'd be cool to hear the stories.
Yeah.
See if what they were talking about and stuff like that. I didn't know if I should have or not because I've never served at the White House.
It's all
I thought it would kind of be cool to be in there and hear. I don't see anything, notifications from them though. I should go look in it and so I can see and stuff because I'll probably start getting notifications once I go look. You know how it is with Facebook. I'm in a million groups. So I only get notifications from the ones I yet have not gotten banned from.
I've left a lot of groups over the years. A lot of them were political discussions groups, kind of, and it become an echo chamber. You know what I mean? So I've left all that. I don't do any political discussion on social media outside of if I put something out, on my own pages. I generally don't go comment on other people's stuff, unless it's somebody I know. I may like a post, but I generally don't comment unless it's like a birthday, something nice. I don't get in the back and forth nonsense because you're not going to win. It's a no-win situation. The only thing it's going to do is get you attacked and people to run your name down. So it's just best to put out your own stuff, be positive, and just go from there. That's my thoughts.
I've gotten to be the same way. I've lost a lot of interest in social media, to be honest about it, and I have a hard time engaging in it. But I'm the same way. I'll start. Actually, I sit there and start typing things out, and I go, "What am I doing? Why am I wasting my time on this nonsense?" And I delete it all out and move on. Every once in a while, I might make it feel compelled enough to make a comment, and when people do retaliate or say things that I don't engage in that sort of activity any longer. They can get as ugly as they want to, and I've learned a long time ago. It's just as easy to scroll. It's easier to scroll on by than it is to.
Yes, it is. There's been times whenever I've had to, the proverbial biting of the tongue, where I've had to kind of clench my fist and say, "Oh, I'm not going to type that comment." I'm going to hold off, keep scrolling, maybe even close Facebook for a little bit and walk away from it. That's kind of the best option, because if you throw something out there, people are going to screenshot it. They're going to misrepresent what you meant and, use it against you, because that's what people do now. It's always a gotcha moment. And it's sad that our society has devolved to that.
Well, the algorithms are built that way. They want you fighting because people are reactive. And when people are reactive, then they spend more time on there. So they build it that way. And I just won't feed into their ideas on that or that business model.
Yeah. And whenever you're sitting there focused on, arguing with somebody on social media who probably doesn't even know you, and you don't know them, in probably most respects, you waste all your time, you waste all your effort, and you're not paying attention to real things that actually matter in the world. Your own life, what your government is doing, what your local elected officials are doing, or really anything in society. You're focused narrowly on some nonsense somebody posted that's probably not true anyway. And then you just become an idiot for trying to prove them wrong. If they're wrong, they're wrong. Move on. You know, you're not going to change their mind. You're not going to win the argument. It's not, because it's not a real debate. It's just somebody running their mouth.
Well, worse yet is I think a lot of people have come to realize a lot of who you're arguing with aren't human beings at all. They're AI. You can waste your time arguing with an artificial intelligence.
Right. Right. We got Liquid Laser putting a bunch of comments here tonight. I'm not trying to figure out what the profile picture is there. I can't really tell. It's so small from my screen. But anyway, yeah, a lot of good comments there tonight from some folks.
I always look at his image there, and I always think it's a Muslim skeleton wearing a turban or something. But
yeah, so
that could be
like
just
somebody,
my mind putting an image together.
or it looks
I don't
like
know what it is.
I don't know, somebody like a ghost or maybe a Joker character from the 70s with an afro. I don't know. I can't really tell. It's just anyway. Maybe Liquid Laser could comment and say what their actual profile picture is there. I'd like to know because I can't really tell from how small it is here.
I can't either. In the comments, they disappear from the lives. I notice when you go to look, and after the show's over, you're like, "Hey, that guy made a comment. I want to go back and pick that up. I wanted to see what he was talking about." And you go back, and they're all empty. Like, where are all the comments?
Oh yeah, we got another comment here. That guy is 90% AI. Okay.
He's here every
that
week,
was a
so I
dress-up
don't
photo
think so.
booth at a dinner party for work year-end function. Okay, dress up party. All right, interesting. Okay, I can't really tell. It's just too small for me to see. So maybe I should break out my readers.
No, I mean, they're just little tiny.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell on these.
Yeah.
Looking at I don't know what you're looking at. You're probably on a laptop. I don't know.
Yeah, I am. I'm on my MacBook here. So
yeah. So the screen's kind of small anyway, and it's just a little tiny.
Okay.
What they call avatar. So it's hard to tell these things.
Okay. Good to know that. Good to know that. So anyway, yeah, what's going on in your neck of the woods? How are things with the job, etc.? Out on the road much?
Oh yeah, I'm still doing my job. 5 days a week. I get up, try to get up as early as I can to get out as early as I can because it's that truck isn't blowing any AC whatsoever, and the other truck was supposed to be fixed by now, and it's not, of course. But
I was wondering about that. Well, hopefully it'll cool off this fall, and you'll get some relief.
Yeah, it's nice. I mean, the fortunate thing, I made a statement last night. Billy and I had a really good show. I made a great guest on. We had a lot of fun, and I made a statement about I know Florida heat when I feel it. Talking about how hot it gets up here in the summertime in August, but really, truthfully, New England is great in the morning. You wake up 60 degrees, 63 degree mornings, and it warms up during the day. So come 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm ready to get out of that truck because now it's up in the high 80s and stuff.
Right.
The sun cooking through the windshield and the glass on you and all. You just even though I got both windows down and I'm running the 2x60s for air conditioning, right, with a little fan hanging up in the dash. But about that time of day, I'm like, yep, you know what? I'm not doing that last load. There is no way I'm staying in this truck any longer. So
right,
but you do what you do. You know what I'm saying?
I imagine you lose weight, just sweat weight in that truck during the day, right?
I wish. I still feel like I got it all right here, man.
I said sweat weight. You eat all the water you drink and stuff, right?
No, I do get kind of dehydrated, so I keep up with hydration pretty good. I keep bottles of water in my truck, but I have to put them in the door pocket. My door has a little one like cars do, and I stuff like 4 or 5 bottles in there. If I leave them anywhere else in the truck, they heat up from the floorboard stuff and all the heat coming up. So, and there's nothing like drinking hot water,
Right. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, man. Truck drivers that are out there that are listening, man, we do appreciate what you do. I mean, you think about everything that we buy, by and large, arrives somewhere. Arrives at the store on a truck. One type of truck or another delivering those things. So for what you guys do, man, we really appreciate it because I go to the store and I want to pick something up. It's like is it going to be there? For the most part, everything that I try to go buy is there. So it's because of truck drivers that are out there doing the job every day, and a lot of times it's a thankless job. Think about it. People blow by them driving down the road, flipping them off, all this stuff, like get out of the way. It's like they're not driving a sports car. They're performing a valued service for each and every one of us. Even the car you brought was brought by a truck driver, for crying out loud. So stop being an a-hole to them. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on that.
the big deal.
Sorry.
Yeah, when it comes to the FMCSA, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, which regulates the trucking industry, I'm like the far left when it comes to being extreme. I'm not saying I am leftist. I'm saying I'm
I get what you're
extreme like
saying,
they
yeah.
are, man. I go ape on them.
Yeah.
Even with bars as the administrator and Sean Duffy as the Secretary of Transportation, I'm looking at him going, we don't need an hours of service rules. You need to get rid of that crap. That's as outdated, it's antiquated. It's nuts, man. They hold you to an hour of service rules. I was talking to James Lamb. He owns the Small Business Transportation Coalition. I don't know if you remember him or not, but yeah, I told him, I said, yeah, we should get rid of it. It's a good time to get rid of the hours of service rules, man. We got them over a barrel. And I was telling him why. He goes, oh boy, you really shoot for the stars, don't you?
No, right now is the time while we have I guess friendly administration to a degree, who campaigned on doing a lot of these types of things, smaller government, more limited government, getting rid of the education department, getting rid of all this stuff. Why not get rid of the FMCSA or at least, neuter them to a degree where they can't implement certain things, if you will, like the hours of service, like you talk about, that makes sense, right? I mean, I'm not an expert on it, but I've heard you for years talk about it. I've heard many other truck drivers talk about it. I've heard Taylor Barker talk about it. You know him. He's from right here.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I know Taylor.
Yeah.
I'm friends with him.
Fantastic musician, by the way.
He is. He's good.
Oh yeah. So I've heard him talk about it on a regular, he's got a good audience, I listen to the experts, people that are out in the field actually doing the job.
Yeah, no, the thing about it is they got something called transportation policy.
Mhm.
And that's where the United States Department of Transportation is supposed to be working in regulations to make better working conditions for the trucking industry, to eliminate unfair and destructive practices, things like this, concerns about monopolization, antitrust. So, and there is a DOJ office that's supposed to work with the transportation agencies. So in this case, the FMCSA, regarding antitrust, and the FTC would work in things as far as deprecative practices and stuff like that. So
right.
They don't get into antitrust for some reason. They got a whole different department for that. And but honestly, when everything's connected with the issues of trucking, so if you take the hours of service rules combined with the parking issues, and they have the continuously running clock on the hours service rules, what you're doing is you're forcing a lot of trucks to shut down at the same time during the evening time. So there's no rotation of the available parking spaces. So they got us working in an environment where there's 11 trucks per one parking space with an hours of service rules that are limiting people's ability to work in accordance to how their bodies let them work. So they're shutting down when they shouldn't be shutting down, fighting over spaces that don't exist. And this is why you're seeing trucks parked along the sides of the interstates where they get fined for it, or they park at Walmart's where Walmart's is having them booted for it, $400 to get unbooted. And Walmart's doing that because local municipalities are finding places like Walmart's and other, department stores and places where trucks may have availability to park. They don't want them there because they don't want the overnight, fines because of overnight truck parking. So it's kind of like this whole circumstance or environment of things that just aren't working favorably for truck drivers, but yet they're held accountable to an hours of service rules. Yeah. And so, when I was over the road, I would commonly just sleep at the docks. They're unloading me. I wasn't required to be out there working the docks or anything. I got 4 or 5 hours sleep at the docks. What am I going to do? Am I going to go down to a truck stop and take a 10-hour break? So now, in regarding the transportation policy I previously mentioned, what they're doing is not utilizing the equipment as prescribed by Congress. So all these things are kind of interrelated in a sort of way. And the FMCSA just can't seem to get their act together. And part of the problem is, as James pointed out, making that comment about hours of service rules, is the safety advocates, so-called safety advocates. You got every jackwagon on the face of the earth, started a 501c3 organization, jumped on board with the American Trucking Associations because that makes them bigger, and they get a voice with the FMCSA. They know nothing. They know jack about trucking. They know jack about safety. They know nothing. They were just affected because of an accident on the road and decided, well, I'm going to create solutions to stop this from happening. But you got to have something viable to bring to the table to argue about. And they don't. But people like Ann Farrell, when she was the administrator, she gave them credit. She gave them more of her time and credibility over people, frontline workers like myself. When we went there, her attitude was, well, you got a reason to want to cheat. You got a reason to want to have laws to work in your favor. So she would listen to these people that knew nothing. So this is why you're having problems and why nothing's becoming effectual or changing as far as safety goes, And as we were talking about economy earlier, you can't have a free market economy and an overregulated industry at the same time and expect that to work.
Right. That's true. People are talking about in the comments about rail. It's like, yeah, rail is great for shipping, a lot of goods from ports, etc. But you also have to take those things off at some point and put them on a truck to get them to a final destination. Rails is perfectly great. I really appreciate the rail. A friend of mine, he works at the Department of Transportation in DC, and he actually is in the office that oversees our rail system, which is kind of cool. So I've seen some of his photos of some of the places he's been. But rail is not gonna do it. You need actual truckers in those seats who know what they're doing. And autonomous vehicles is not gonna get it done for sure. Autonomous vehicles are dangerous on many levels because you're gonna take jobs away from people. You're gonna get people killed, and at the same time, you're taking away somebody's ability to live, if you will, to be able to feed their family, and that's unacceptable and across the board.
Yeah, the thing about autonomy is Elaine Chao, Donald Trump's first Secretary of Transportation, useless. And she put together her only one accomplishment there that I know of as far as trucking goes was put together something called autonomous vehicles DOT 3.0. And so it was a structure or an outline she had developed for how they should bring in autonomous vehicles. Now, when you read Project 2025, which come from the Heritage Foundation, they actually say in the transportation sector that the FMCSA should follow DOT's AV 3.0 so that truck drivers can be safely removed from trucks. So the objective is to remove truck drivers. The objective is to get them out of there. Problem is AV 3.0, according to the United States Department of Transportation, involves things like platooning, which means they'll have vehicle-to-vehicle communications. So the sensors on the first truck will communicate, or the first truck, based on its sensors and what it's reading, will communicate to the truck behind it, which will communicate back and forth. You could have 10 trucks that are tailgating one another. So they're running bumper to bumper, 80,000 pounds apiece, 10 of them, 800,000 pounds. The sensors fail on that first truck. There's 9 other trucks that have no idea or no reaction to what's going on ahead because they're based on that one sensor up front that's failed. And now if you got stopped traffic up there because there was an accident or something, can you imagine the devastation?
Absolutely. The carnage, because there's not going to be just one truck wrecking, which is a major catastrophe on our interstate. You're talking about, 8, 10 trucks fully loaded wrecking at the same time. You're talking about mass devastation, people dying. And of course, if you're carrying something that's toxic, fuel or whatever the case may be, it could be some sort of thing that they need to dispose of, radioactive material, something like that. I mean, you can imagine. Chlorine, whatever, gases, etc.
What happens when chlorine outgasses and enters the atmosphere and it gets liquefied through water and stuff? And this actually happened. That's why I bring that up. It had a train derailment near a small town, and it got into the air and stuff, and with the moisture in the air, it was nasty. It was horrible for people. People passed away because of it. And then, of course, emergency service were giving the wrong advice, like, well, rinse it off in the shower. Yeah, you're adding more moisture to the chlorine, which is creating hydrochloric acid, and people got bad burns and inhalation problems.
Yep. So, absolutely. Yeah. I think maybe we do have some AI chatbots here, talking about, we would rather automate than have universal basic income. I don't know if that's a chatbot or somebody for real. No, I don't think
definitely against UBI.
Talk about that if you don't mind. I know you got to get a take on it.
Well, universal basic income, they've been saying this for a while, and they don't say universal high income. They say universal basic income.
Basic income.
And the concept, we heard Andrew Yang, which I met up there in Manchester. I went ahead and talked to him. I talked to any presidential candidate that came through anytime I had a chance.
As you should.
And so he was talking about what was he going to give out? $1,000 a month to every U.S. citizen. He said the math works, and we can afford to give $12,000 a year as a form of UBI. But that was on top of you working. But that would have been one form of it. However, with autonomy and stuff, the concept they're trying to work upon with UBI is they're going to tax corporations that are using autonomy because they're going to make more money, right? So
Yeah.
they'll tax them, supposedly they'll tax them, and they'll take that tax money and put it into UBI funds and disperse that to displaced employees. And according to Elaine Chow, they're going to use the Department of Labor to retool people who are displaced in trucking. I don't know what that means. What am I going to be, a Walmart greeter? What they have in mind for me? I chose trucking for a reason. And at my age,
Right.
what are you going to retool me for? So that was her concept. But as far as UBI goes, the issue is, how many corporations do you think want to support you? And how long do you
Right.
think they're going to do that before they get laws in their favor? More importantly, if you're on UBI, somebody is supporting you. That means, and it's funny because I had a friend that was in business. He used to like to always say paid for everything. And then he would like to say, well, don't you think he who pays the bill should be making the decisions? So if you're being paid not to work, who do you think is going to be making your decisions for you? You or the guy
Right.
who's paying the bills? And so I'm not a fan at all about handouts like that. I'm not a fan at all about UBI. I think people deserve to live with dignity, and that means they need jobs. They need to
Right.
be self-sustaining, and I
Right.
don't think they should be crippled. Now, you're hearing a lot of people like Elon Musk coming out and saying that we're not really replacing people with autonomy, we're enhancing people's job. Now, this makes sense, right? So if they used autonomy in trucks as navigators and stuff, as
Sure.
opposed to
Right.
just running me out of the truck or expecting me to sit in the truck and look out the window and be there for backup, that doesn't make sense. But they're
No.
not even talking about that. They got trucks on the road right now.
Well,
They're
well,
running
let's say that was
autonomous
the
trucks
case.
without drivers.
Let's say that's the band-aid between autonomous vehicles and what we have now, right? Let's say you're just sitting there on the off chance you're needed. Well, if you're not actually driving that vehicle on a regular basis, what skills do you have to be able to just take it over if something goes wrong? How are you going to know when something goes wrong? It's going to be too late before you to be able to gain control of that vehicle. I mean, that's the ridiculous right there. You know what I mean? That notion.
So look, Liquid Laser here. He says, so they want to say, oh no, I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. I'm sorry, wrong person. Why do? So we should go back to mining coal by hand to create more jobs. I think he's being sarcastic when he asks
Yeah,
that.
right.
And fact of the matter is, it's not about being a Luddite, like I just said. If we use AI to enhance people's jobs, to make people's jobs easier, it's one thing. But to displace people in the workplace, how's that going to affect us economically? If you have a major displacement in a region or an area, what happens to the economy? Because middle class, from my understanding, made up a pretty good portion of the nation's economy, and it garnered strength to our economy. Because money is supposed to be, we call it currency for a reason, right? Because it needs to flow.
Right.
And if it stagnates somewhere, we have problems. If it stagnates at the top, people complain about trickle down economics, because if it stagnates at the top, then it never trickles down. And then your economy doesn't have that balance. It doesn't have that flow that you need. So when you displace people from jobs and you got people needing handouts or whatever happens, how is this going to affect the economy? What's going to come of it? And what's going to happen to crime? Because I remember back in the 1990s when we had a strong economy, crime started depleting. It started lowering. People had opportunity. They had a chance to do something with themselves, and they took advantage of it. And they were willing to work hard. Some people would work 3 jobs to get that house. That they were criticized for losing during the market crash. But at the same time, I watched people who had really worked their butts off to better themselves when they had an opportunity. But when they don't have an opportunity, people still have to survive, and they're going to do what they have to survive. So does that mean we're going to have an increase of crime?
You're right. Yeah, something like that. Reasonable.
So
I'm
I
just
don't know.
scrolling Newsmax for any headlines that may have come out since we've been on the air here. I'm just kind of seeing here.
Aha, that's what you're doing.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Also, I get comments occasionally. It's like, why aren't you looking at directly into the camera? It's like, well, I look down and I look at whoever's talking, like John or the Colonel. I read the comments, and also I scroll the media. Plus, my light is up here, and I don't want to sit there and look at the light the whole time. So
Sometimes
I look down at the screen.
The glare does wear on you.
Yeah, so I look down at the screen, makes it just easier for me. So that's why I'm not looking directly into the camera. Like if I was on a TV interview or something like that, I'm going to look directly into the camera. But those moments are actually brief versus this, where you sit here for 2 hours.
So some of these comments here with why do I and Liquid Lasers made a couple of them, but I don't want people to get me wrong either. Corporations have a right to do what they want to do. There's no laws barring them. There's no laws stopping them. But I just don't know who's going to buy their product when they deplete the economy of workers. But we as a people, what are we doing?
Right.
What are we doing about our circumstance? So why are we accepting what's happening? Do we have to have a nanny state? Do we have to go to government and say, stop this? Or can we start organizing in our communities? We were just talking about shopping at your local stores as opposed to going to the big box stores. Why are we not working as a community? Why are we not organizing our communities? Why are we not supporting each other? Why are we not going to our state reps and talking to our state reps and saying, you know what, if we can figure out how we can get some grant money and get some small business started up within our communities, that maybe we can start building stronger communities where we can shop, create our own jobs and keep ourselves, sustain ourselves. We don't have to have a government other than maybe using state reps to work out with the banks and stuff like that if we have to. And in fact, if you check with the state of New Hampshire, I do believe they already got programs and stuff regarding these sorts of matters. We just have to get off our butts. We have to organize. We have to figure out what we need in our communities, how to fill the voids in our communities, so that we're providing a business with a successful business model instead of throwing something. I mean, Nashua, New Hampshire doesn't need another Chinese restaurant. It doesn't need another pizza shop, and it definitely doesn't need another Dunkin' Donuts. But I'm sure there are things out there where businesses would be able to sustain themselves and do quite well that it does need.
Right. Oh, I agree with you. Yeah, absolutely. You know, and people celebrate. I see it on social media all the time. We're getting this, we're getting that. And it's usually some nonsensical restaurant. You know, it's like, do we really need more fast food places? And I'm not against people setting up a shop and whatever. If people want to go shop there and you want to open up a new sandwich shop, whatever, that's cool. But is that what we really need? We get excited over the new restaurant or the new convenience store, like a big Buc-ee's or whatever. You know, I get people love the Buc-ee's, you know, but it's like, this is what we're getting excited over. Like, this is our excitement, you know, more consumerism versus, you know, anyway, I don't want to, I'm going to go into a diatribe here, but this is what excites people in our society now, you know, and this is how our governments get out of control. Like it is. This is how you add so much debt to the, you know, to the, you know, the national debt, is because people don't pay attention. They're distracted by superficial things that don't benefit their lives in the least. You know, more places to go spend your money. Another place to be distracted, if you will. Oh, we're going to go to this, you know, whatever, you know, like, I don't know. I don't want to say like Disneyland or whatever the case may be. It's like, this is what our focus is, you know, the bread and circuses, the entertainment of everything, you know, social media, you know, and any number of apps that we spend money on, and we focus on like it's important, like it's life, you know. I think social media, the internet, etc., should be a tool for us to use to better ourselves, to maybe put our business out there, to talk about real positive things, but it shouldn't be the focus of our life. You know, the fake stuff that's out there. Any number of apps that people waste money on that make, you know, Apple and all these creators multimillionaires because, well, I'm playing the online game, the this, the that. Now I got to buy this thing because I need to be able to get to that next level. And people are spending real money on things that aren't real, you know, and I don't quite understand that. It makes no sense to me.
No, I know what you mean. You know, it's fine. You need some entertainment in your life, but you can't spend all
But
your
don't
money
make that
just
the
on
focus of your
entertainment.
life.
You need to, you know, you got to think like the rich. Elon Musk is not a lazy man by any means. That man
No,
probably
he's not.
sleeps very little at night, and he knows how to manage his money. But more importantly, he knows how to manage his time. See, he's not going to invest his time into something that doesn't create a return on investment. Time is worth money. So if he's making $60 million an hour on average, I'm just making the number up off the top of my head for sake of ease. But if he's making $60 million an hour, you say, hey, Mr. Musk, can I get 5 minutes of your time? To him, you just ask him for $5 million. What do you think he thinks?
Right. Absolutely. It's like, well, how is that going to benefit the companies that I run? How is that going to benefit the people who work for these companies that are making good money, that have actually, in some cases, have become very wealthy as a result of being early adopters and investors and early employees? I think SpaceX made many millionaires, right? If I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, I think Elon is like a kingmaker. Yeah,
Right.
you work with his industry and stuff. You can probably make well off it if you have something to provide him. But here again, these guys think like Elon. They know how to utilize their time.
Right.
You know, they don't waste time on nonsense.
You're right, on cat videos and just stupid stuff that just doesn't benefit anything. You know, yeah, maybe we need a little entertainment every now and then, a little cat dog video, but don't make that the focus of your life where you sit there and scroll for hours and hours. Go out and be productive in society, because you know you're basically the victim of your own choices. Nobody else is victimizing you. It's not necessarily the government or some big corporation that's screwing you over. You're doing it to yourself in a lot of ways. Our own choices have set ourselves up for failure, or our choices could set ourselves up for success. And I'm saying that kind of collectively as a society. You know, individual choices affect the whole of society one way or another, especially if you have enough people with the same mindset.
So Liquid Laser says, I'm just say this. The demand for everyone to own their own peanut butter factory is low. That was what we were talking about
Sure.
earlier. You don't need another, pizza shop. You don't need another Chinese restaurant or Mexican restaurant, at least where I live, and definitely don't need another Dunkin' Donuts. But
Right.
you find that niche, and that's the thing. And there are people, I've seen people that had great butcher shops.
Yeah.
And I look at this butcher shop, I'm going, dude, I'm getting like an inch and a half thick cut meat. You know how that cooks on the grill compared to a little thin cut you're getting over here at that big box store. I'm going,
the big grocery store.
I like the butcher shop. I favor the butcher shop for that reason.
I
You
love
get
it, yeah.
and you can talk to that guy. Hey, you ever check out this or that, or you know what I mean? You
Yeah,
ever get
and-
this in, and he'll go out and look for it for you.
Yeah, and you can ask him to cut it a certain way. Be like, hey, I love filet, but can you make it a little thinner? Just make it a little bit thinner. I love filet though, and I love good T-bone. Well, I love steak in general. But
Yeah,
you can get it cut
yeah.
however you want to, and I love that.
I mentioned to a friend about celebrating my wife's birthday this weekend. So we're gonna go to the Lost Cowboy. What do you think? And she goes, "Are we riding horses, cows? What?" I go, "No, hon, we don't ride them. We eat them."
We don't ride them, we eat them. That's good right there. Yeah. Well, folks, we got about 10 minutes left on the program. You're listening to the Common Sense Conservative right here on WSMN 1590 AM and 95.3 FM. Of course, available every week, 7 to 9 Eastern on wsmn.live. That's wsmn.live. And of course, on social media, streaming platforms, etc. And we have a good audience around the world, and it's very much appreciated, as I said earlier. We got a few more minutes. Anyway, John, what's on your agenda for the next week or so?
Well, work, and more work as a rule. I got a lot of work to do, bro. A lot of work to do. I'll tell you what, man, I am behind.
Yeah, me too.
So
Me too.
everybody
And so-
is.
Right. I'm trying to get a lot of projects done by the end of September, because don't know what the weather's going to look like in the fall, because I don't know if it's going to turn off cold, October, November. So I want to try to get everything done by the end of September and have a couple months there to kind of tidy a few things up.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I don't know. I'm just trying to get, my stuff together as far as home life, and I got cars to work on. I say this every week, right? I sound like a broken record, but it's true. That's why I say, because it's true. It's always on my mind. Sometimes it wears you down. You think about it too hard. You ever do that? You got a project you got to do, work on the house or work on the car, but you're doing something else. Say you had to go drive, like when you were the American Legion or whatever, you had to do this long drive. And you're thinking about your job in your head, and the time when you've arrived, done what you have to do, and got back home, you felt like you've done the job 3 times over, and you haven't touched it yet because you always plan it out in your head. You're thinking about it.
Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, whenever you do get back home, you're like, man, it adds more pressure to you. Eventually you either deal with it by just knocking it out. And a lot of people just put it off, and it just becomes more pressure on you needlessly. Needless pressure. And it's mental pressure that you're putting.
Worst thing to do is put it off. Worst thing you can do, because you're right, because it'll compound. Now you really don't want to do it because you thought about it too hard. Yeah. Stop thinking about it. Just know you got to get it done and do it.
I've been putting off cleaning my kitchen for a while now, and I'm like, I've been saying for the last 6 weeks or so, I've been doing little minor cleaning here and there, but I'm like, I really need to do a very in-depth cleaning. Move the stove, move the refrigerator, take things out of the cabinets, and I'm like, I'll do it next week. I'll do it tomorrow, whatever. And now to the point where I got a few days where I can really focus on it. I really just need to knock it out before the end of the weekend.
So you're just not getting to your spring cleaning.
Yeah, basically. Well, I try to do like a little spring cleaning and a fall cleaning, and of course, in the wintertime, if we get a break in the weather, I'll do a good cleaning, at least every couple months, do a good cleaning. But I really haven't done that over the past year, which is sad.
So never in my life would I've ever thought I'd be doing a radio show about politics, talking to another man about cleaning his home.
Cleaning. Well, I don't have a maid or somebody to come in. I don't have a person that does it, so I gotta handle it myself.
You need cleaning tips, Todd? I'll call the
No,
wife.
I'm good. But whenever I do it, I put on like a nice history podcast. Last week, whenever I cleaned most of the house and left the kitchen for last, I had David McCullough on, history, writer of John Adams, Truman, all these books, Johnstown Flood, all these books about history, historical people and events. And, just listen to him talk. He's passed away now, but just listen to him talk about history. It reinvigorated me on, our nation, if you will, and being active in society. Because sometimes you get jaded and get to the point where you're like, heck with it, I'm going to go do something else. And you're like, you listen to that, and it's like, now I know why I'm doing it. I remember why, it reminds you for sure. what the people went through in Valley Forge. Think about it. Think about the people who went through the revolution, who I consider our founding fathers, who we don't even know. You know what I mean? People fought in the revolution who are unknown to us at this point. People that are still dead on battlefields that are out there that we don't even know where they're at, who they are, whatever the case may be. And occasionally we come across those bodies, even British soldiers that we find on a regular basis. These people are forgotten to society, to the world, and it's like, we need to remember them and honor them by doing the best we can while we can, I think is important.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on the history. The history is amazing. I mean, like you start getting into stuff. I don't know what you know about the Black Robe Regiment and what that means.
Bit, yeah.
And that's so basically, I mean, in short, I don't know a whole lot more detail really, but the Black Robe was dubbed by supposedly King George. Made a statement. He says if it wasn't for the black, he called them the Black Robe or the Black Regiment. And he said if it wasn't for the Black Regiment, the revolution may never have happened. And that was your preacher at the pulpit, and he was the guy. And that's what I was starting to get that earlier with Chris about, God, it was a good couple of decades before the Revolutionary War. These guys were at the pulpit going, this is what the king demands of us. And, they're basically talking about, they're related to God. And there was one, Mulhaney, I think his name was, and he was preaching right at 1776. He was preaching. And he pretty much started reading from Ecclesiastics about war and stuff. And he says, now, gentlemen, is the time to go to war. And he drops his robe and he's wearing his blues, man. He was like, we're going to war. We're done. We're going to war. He's donning gear and stuff. He's like, we're done with this. We're done with this. And basically, he's right. Christ was the original liberator. And and for us to sit here and this kind of pertinent to what we've talked about in the past, with the liberal left and stuff and trying to usher in communism and working with the Muslim Brotherhood, if you will.
Right.
A lot of people don't understand that when we talk about homosexual people that say they stand with Palestine. This is an infiltration that people don't realize. This isn't really, we joke about it, but truth of the matter is there's a kind of an infiltration with the left and Palestine and the Muslim Brotherhood that people don't realize exist. And so when they're saying that because they're being told. They're like little foot soldiers being told to say this sort of thing. They're led to believe these sorts of things. But that's what the Black Robe was, or the Black Robe Regiment, or the Black Regiment. And so the British soldiers come to realize that they were the ones, the guys at the pulpits, the priests or preachers were the ones who really riled the troops up, who really got things going, who really stoked the fire. And so now you see today they want to stop that. They tell you, well, you got a 501c3, and if you're going to talk about politics at the pulpit, you're not going to have your 501c3 anymore. I tell you, man, if I was running a church, I would kick that right out. That'd be 501c3 my butt. We don't need to be chartered with you to have church. I'll guarantee you that.
Right, absolutely. And I dare you to try to come shut us down. That's whenever you should be standing out there with your guns, your rifles, shotguns, whatever the case may be. Any law enforcement, any military shows up, you start firing on them right then and there. I'm sorry, you're done at that point. You want to come shut down a church because they're not paying because they get away with that. They do away with their 501c3 profit or not for nonprofit status, and now you want to try to tax them. I dare you to try to go shut them down. I dare you.
It won't happen, man. You just go to church anyway. I can have church anywhere. I can have church in a field. I can have church in my garage, a barn. I don't need a building, and I don't need to pay taxes.
Well, a building's not a church anyway. The church is the people. The church is inside you. You know what I'm saying? I don't need to go sit in a building necessarily to be counted and for people to see me going to church. I can go to church, by talking to God on my own. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Free men don't need to ask for permission, right?
Right. I mean, back in the old days, whenever the church, and then this is the Catholic Church with their blasphemy laws, where you couldn't have a Bible study, without a preacher or priest there, there was blasphemy, if you will, it was illegal, it's sad. And we forget that.
To me, that was the wrong kind of church. Yeah. You're talking about churches that wanted to control their congregation. They wanted to be the leaders to the point they were going to control and micromanage every aspect of that.
And we're a human being wearing a funny hat can excommunicate and say you're not going to heaven. Come on, get out of here with that nonsense. So stupid.
No. That's where we start talking about relationship, man. Relationship with God is the thing, and that's where it's at.
Right. And I'm not making fun of Catholics, but you have a pope who's a head of state, head of church, and all this stuff, and it's like, Even the King of England's head of the church too. There in England, by the way. So that's weird to me. You know, it's odd.
What is it? The Episcopalians think
Right.
differently.
Yeah. All right, folks. That's our show. We'll be back next week. Same time, same bat channel. Until then, see you and God bless.